Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host G1. As always, I hope you are having a good week. Yeehaw! What a week. This may be it, boys. This may be the thing that sets the whole thing off and starts the fire that burns us all down. You know from the thumbnail and the title of the show, I'm talking about the border situation in Texas. The non-existent national border of the USA also happens to be the state boundary of Texas, and it's flooded with illegal migrants. An invasion is happening, a seemingly endless train of people, a human wave, day after day, have crossed the border and have overflowed the capacity of Texas to handle them. The U.S. Border Patrol has been ordered to put these people on planes and trains, pat them on the back, give them a phone and a gift card, and send them on their way into the country. They get to fly on the planes without going through the same security that you and I have to go through, by the way. They get put on buses and they're shipped off in the middle of the night. And while some of them, yes, the state of Texas particularly, has gotten on by sending those buses of people to the sanctuary cities to kind of press the matter, where do the rest of them go? Well, they go to areas of the country that are considered to be, too traditional, meaning white and conservative. This is a mass demographic operation. Make no mistake about it. There's no doubt about this. It's not even a discussion. There's no logical and acceptable argument that can be made to justify what is taking place and the federal government's reactions to this. The Border Patrol is being directed to operate in a certain way. The DOJ is taking legal actions to force the border states to cease any kind of activities and actions that are designed to halt the illegal crossings. Now, you're no doubt aware of what some of the states have been doing. Arizona put in place a long border barrier using unused shipping containers, and they were ordered and forced through legal action to remove them. And that took place at the time of a political change in the leadership of Arizona, and so they complied with it rather than push back. The border walls, that areas that were being built in New Mexico were shut down, and the materials to build it were just left to degrade in the environment, with the Biden administration paying for storage of that material rather than the completion of the wall. Which brings us to Texas. Texas has placed floating barriers in the Rio Grande River that are designed to prevent people from crossing through the water. They've also placed shipping containers along the border in the unfinished sections of the wall, as well as barbed wire fence, and recently called up and deployed the Texas National Guard to patrol and control access augment the Border Patrol, basically. Now, these actions have been opposed by the DOJ through multiple lawsuits. The water barrier, specifically, was addressed in one lawsuit that Texas has prevailed so far in that suit. The barrier has been ordered by the courts to stay in place. The wire fencing, particularly at Eagle Pass, Texas, which is the subject of this main, most recent legal action that we're talking about today, that fencing was ordered by the Biden DOJ and the Border Patrol to be removed, and for the state to pull back the guard and allow the feds to control that crossing and allow the flow of people to continue through Eagle Pass. Now, Governor Abbott of Texas has said no. The state sued the Biden administration in federal court, and they won an injunction to allow them to continue to control that access while the court case was still going on. The case is still pending and winding its way. It will eventually reach the Supreme Court. However, the Biden admin made an emergency appeal to lift the injunction and allow them to take over and reopen that crossing while the case was in process. And this week, the Supreme Court ruled on just that injunction. Okay, that's something that's sort of getting lost in the chatter of the media and the press about this. Is this ruling of the court is only on this injunction, and they ruled in favor of the administration, which technically allows the feds to come back in and open the crossing. However, Governor Abbott has said no. The governor issued a statement, which is it's out there on the net for you to find and read if you haven't already. I wasn't going to bother putting that into the video for this episode because it's kind of a small print and it was going to be kind of hard for you to read anyway. So go out there and look for it. It's out there in multiple places. But it's whereby he proclaims that the federal government has abdicated its constitutional responsibility to protect and defend the borders of the United States. Therefore, it is the duty, responsibility, and the right of Texas to defend and control its own borders. And this, in my opinion, is correct, and it is self-evident. The Constitution would never have passed ratification if the states were told they no longer would have a sovereign border, and that the sole right and responsibility of that duty would rest with the federal government. That never would have passed muster. Now, of course, the last civil fracas that we had did much to kill the idea of the state's sovereign status, but we still have the 10th Amendment, and despite the assertions of the administration, that still holds some weight. Texas, as well as any other state, still has the authority and duty and responsibility to control its boundaries and its borders. They do this all the time without the feds getting involved. And Abbott has come back and said, no, we are not going to remove those barriers. We're not going to allow the feds to have access and reopen that illegal crossing. And many other states have lined up behind him and his administration, and they've promised to send additional National Guardsmen to assist in this action, as well as other resources as needed. I saw, I believe Florida said they would send drones and other things as needed, money, whatnot. And the list is growing as the day goes on, so I will not try and capture all of those states here today, but it's already up to something like 5 as I record this show. Florida, Montana, South Dakota, Georgia. There were others. Likely more by the time you see this episode. So is this it? Are we quickly approaching an impasse that sets off the conflict that many have been feeling for some time? Now, I'm not sure of that. I think there's probably a long road ahead before we get to that. As much as I may joke about what could possibly be, I still think that is a potentially long way off. The prudent option for the admin would be to remain silent and allow the case to make its way through the courts. Now, the problem there is that despite what some people tend to assert, and there's many on the right that believe this, and some people on the left believe it, I don't think that the elites behind the scene have as much control over SCOTUS as has been claimed. I certainly believe that there is pull there, there is compromise there with a few of those members, but I don't think that it's as solid and as reliable as we are led to believe by I'll use the term conspiracyist or conspiracy theorist very loosely and just for lack of a better term. I think there's a legitimate fear from those that are hidden that they will lose this case, as they should, and as they should fear. And that allows the border states to take back their authority and shut down the border. I don't think that the powers that be want this to be litigated in the SCOTUS. I think they want to shut all this down prior to that. This can't be allowed to happen from their perspective. I think the play here is really just to create chaos and division. Maybe create something like a constitutional crisis, which could mean, as some are speculating, that this is an elaborate trap. Clay Martin, our fellow creator over at Defiance Training Group, says as much. I believe he said this over on Gab, but you guys may remember Clay. I interviewed him a few months back, but he thinks this is a potential trap being put into place. Abbott, we are told by some of the responses to his post, has connections to the World Economic Forum. So, you know, there could be levers being moved way in the background. I have not seen evidence of the WEF connections, so I can't say for sure how solid that is, but it does beg the question if there is really more behind the scenes than we know. I think there is, because there's always more levels and layers to these stories than we're privy to, but you know, how deep down the rabbit hole do we go? What could that be? Well, let's look at a couple possibilities, as I'm fond of speculating, mostly just to talk these things out and kind of noodle through them. And I can talk myself out of likely possibilities or unlikely possibilities as well. So don't think just because I'm putting something forward here that I'm necessarily backing one of these more than the other. I don't know what's going to happen. It could be a combination of things. First off, is this legit? And I mean the response and the posturing that is taking place. Is Abbott serious about this and willing to force a confrontation between the feds and state personnel? We don't know. We've seen Abbott talk a big game before and then backpedal, or back roll maybe in his case, away from his seemingly solid position. So that remains to be seen. It seems to be that he's serious, at least for now. There is no indication that Texas troops and their law enforcement are moving away from the crossing as of this show, and we're well past the deadline that was set to vacate those locations. So for the moment, he seems to be serious. Well, what about the feds? The feds, it is rumored, have said that they will charge any Texas guardsmen with criminal charges resulting in fines and jail time if they follow these orders. Given what this administration has done to its political opponents to this point, that is highly likely. Their track record says that they will carry through with that threat. So let's assume that both sides of this are serious for the time being. We could see different scenarios here. We could see a host of feds come in and create a standoff at the border there, that Eagle Pass. Think Bundy Ranch, but with the Guard and the Texas Rangers maybe on one side, and the FBI and the U.S. Marshals on the other. I think this would likely result in the feds backing down and walking away, but that's not as it seems. It's an operation designed to provoke a media response and to identify the guardsmen and the rangers so that some point down the road they sweep in, a week or two later and begin making arrests of those people when they're not at the border and charging them, J6 style. Work through the downstream effects of that on your own, and as you will with all of these scenarios, potentially. We could see an attempt to escalate this by the feds, not at the border, but at the governor's office. Perhaps they take the legal course to arrest the governor himself, and they create a standoff at the Capitol or the governor's home, the governor's office. Same kind of situation could happen there. Work through that downstream outcome as you will. We could see the feds shut down federal dollars going to Texas in an attempt to cut off the money. They could force banking institutions to freeze the state's accounts and prevent them from paying payroll or other expenditures. For that matter, they could take those actions against the individuals that they identify that are following these orders from their state leadership. Work through that. We could see the most probable chaotic course of action being a federal raid on the border, getting into a gunfight with the Guard, possibly even a raid on the Guard headquarters to arrest their command and leadership. That could be undertaken by military police. We don't know. Many of these options could lead to further chaos. Whatever the feds do, there's no doubt that it leads to further delegitimization. They have seemingly given up on pretending that they are the good guys and have gone into soft tyranny mode. And that's the fear that I harbor here. They are, in my opinion, manipulating this situation. I am lining up somewhat with Clay on this. We are in an untenable position here, and we're going to have to make a choice on a course of action. If the states and the people back down, then our country is done. We are flooded with an invasion of people, even more than we already have, who have no loyalty to our history and traditions and culture. They'll be made citizens overnight, and they will demand political power. They will exert political power. And our form of government will be replaced, and everything our ancestors bled for to create will be destroyed and replaced. If the states resist, then it gives the feds the appearance of authority to act legitimately, and the public support from those who are still too blinded to see. They will crush the last of the state's sovereignty and arrest as many political opponents as they can and impose all of those same outcomes that I highlighted before. Now, the long shot here, the turd in the woodpile, as my dad always said, is that they believe that these are the only two possible outcomes. But they are wrong. The other outcome is that they pursue this line, and they've underestimated how dangerous we the people actually are. They bite off far more than they have ever had to contend with in the past, and they get their teeth kicked in. Now, lesser men in foreign lands have done just as much to this government. Either way, you've got to prepare yourself. Make some goals and achieve them as quickly as you can, because this thing is moving. Now, that's all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.